You locked a 9-year-old outside in a blizzard on her birthday. His voice cracked. What kind of person does that? What kind of monster? Diane's expression shifted from defensive to desperate. I've given up everything for you. My career, my friends, my life in Portland. I've played stepmother to a kid who never wanted me here, who looks at me like I'm the villain and you're choosing her over me. Every single time. Thomas moved to stand between Diane and Harlow. She's my daughter, that's not a choice, that's biology, love, and responsibility. You knew that when you married me, you said you understood. I tried, Diane's voice rose to a shout. Do you know how hard I tried? But she's always there, always needing something, always reminding me that I'm not her real mother. Because you're not, Thomas said simply, and that's okay, you didn't have to be her mother. You just had to be kind. Garrett cleared his throat. Mr. Finch, I'm going to suggest something. Your wife should pack a bag and leave tonight. Find a hotel, stay with friends, whatever. But Harlow shouldn't be under the same roof as someone who just tried to, he paused, choosing words carefully. Who endangered her life. Tried to kill me, Harlow said quietly. That's what you were going to say. The room froze. Even Diane went still. I wasn't trying to, Diane started, but Sloane cut her off. You turned off the lights, you ignored her screaming, you went to bed while a child froze on your porch. What do you call that? Diane's face crumpled. For the first time, something that might have been genuine emotion crossed her features, shame, maybe, or the belated realization of what she'd done. I just wanted one night. One night where I didn't have to think about her, where I could pretend my life was still mine. Then you should have never married a man with a daughter, Thomas said coldly. Pack your things, I want you gone in 30 minutes. Diane looked around the room at 200 bikers who'd witnessed everything, at her husband who'd finally stopped making excuses, at Harlow wrapped in blankets that strangers had provided. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked upstairs. The sound of drawers opening and closing filled the house. Phoenix had brought warm water and clean clothes, a soft sweater and fleece pants from his daughter Sage. Harlow changed in the bathroom while Sloane stood guard outside, then returned to the couch where her father held her like she might disappear. I'm sorry, Thomas whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry I didn't see what was happening. You were working, Harlow's voice was muffled against his chest. You had to work. Not anymore, I'll quit if I have to. I'll find something closer, something with better hours. I'm never leaving you alone with her again. You don't have to quit, Garrett said, but you do need help. A 9-year-old shouldn't be alone this much. Thomas nodded, wiping his eyes. Her grandmother lives in Bend. Maybe she could come stay with us for a while, just until I figure things out. A younger biker, early 20s with a kind face and nervous energy, stepped forward. Sir, I'm Austin. I run a youth program at the community center. We do after-school stuff, homework help, art projects, dinner. It's free. Harlow would be welcome anytime. And there's the club, Sloane added. We do family events every month, barbecues, holiday parties. Your daughter needs people who'll look out for her. We do that. Thomas looked around at these strangers, these supposed dangerous criminals, who'd done more for his daughter in 2 hours than his wife had done in 4 years. Why? Why are you helping us? Garrett was quiet for a moment, then, I had a daughter once, Emma, she'd be about Harlow's age now if he stopped, swallowed hard. She died when she was 4, cancer. And in those last months when she was sick, when we were desperate, people helped us. Strangers mostly, brought food, watched her while we slept, just showed up. I swore if I ever had the chance to do the same for another kid, I would. He looked at Harlow, so here we are. Diane came downstairs 20 minutes later with 2 suitcases and her car keys. She paused at the door, looking back at Thomas one last time. You'll regret this. When you're struggling to pay bills and juggling work and childcare and everything else, you'll remember that I was here, that I tried. You didn't try, Thomas said quietly. You resented, there's a difference. Diane's face hardened. Fine. My lawyer will be in touch. She walked out, letting the door slam behind her. Through the window, Harlow watched her stepmother's car pull away, taillights disappearing into the snow. The silence that followed felt enormous. Then Sloane stood and clapped her hands once. All right, this kid needs a proper birthday. Who's got candles? Within minutes, the bikers had transformed the situation. Someone retrieved the snow-covered cake from the porch and scraped off the ruined frosting. Someone else ran to the store, the only one still open, a 24-hour gas station, and returned with new candles, ice cream, and party hats shaped like motorcycles. Phoenix pulled out a harmonica and started playing a bluesy version of Happy Birthday. Harlow sat at her own kitchen table, surrounded by 200 leather-clad strangers, and for the first time in 4 years felt like she belonged somewhere. They sang to her, rough voices, off-key and enthusiastic. When the song ended, Garrett placed the cake in front of her, 9 candles burning bright. "Make a wish, kid, and make it count." Harlow closed her eyes. She thought about wishing for her mother back, but that was impossible. She thought about wishing Diane had never existed, but that felt cruel. Finally, she settled on something simpler. "I wish for people who stay." She blew out the candles. The room erupted in cheers and applause. As cake was distributed, bikers eating off paper plates with plastic forks, laughing and swapping stories, Thomas pulled Garrett aside. "I don't know how to thank you, any of you. You saved my daughter's life tonight." "You don't thank family," Garrett said. "You just show up when they need you." He paused. "Look, I know we seem like a lot, 200 guys on bikes rolling through town. But the Oregon chapter, we're not what people think. We run food drives, fix up houses for elderly folks, raise money for the children's hospital. We take care of our own, and now that includes Harlow." Thomas's voice was thick. "She's really part of your family now. If she wants to be, if you want her to be." "I do," Harlow said from the couch where she was sandwiched between Sloane and Phoenix's daughter Sage, who'd arrived with her father. "I want to be part of the club." Austin, the young biker who ran the youth program, sat cross-legged on the floor near Harlow. "You know what we do every year in March? Big birthday party for all the club kids. Bounce houses, face painting, the works. You'd be invited." "Really?" Harlow's eyes lit up for the first time that night. "Really, plus there's movie nights, camping trips in summer, a haunted house at Halloween. We've got a whole calendar." He pulled out his phone, showing her photos of past events, kids laughing, families gathered around picnic tables, bikers dressed as zombies and vampires. Sloane leaned over. "And if anyone at school gives you trouble, kids being mean, teachers not listening, you tell us. We don't tolerate bullies." "What would you do?" Harlow asked. "Show up." Sloane's smile was fierce. 200 motorcycles parked outside a school gets attention real fast. Suddenly, everyone's very interested in solving problems. Thomas laughed despite himself. "Is that legal?" "Parking on public streets, absolutely." Garrett's expression was innocent. "We're just concerned citizens participating in our daughter's education." The party continued past midnight. Thomas called his boss, explained the situation in vague terms, family emergency, need a few days, and was surprised when his supervisor immediately approved the time off. Apparently, word had already spread through Sweet Home about what happened. Small towns and news traveled fast. Around 1 in the morning, the bikers began filtering out. Each one stopped by Harlow on their way to the door, offering words of encouragement or small gifts, a stuffed animal, a bookmark, a patch from their vest. Phoenix gave her a small silver compass. "So you always find your way home," he said. Sloane left her number on a piece of paper. "Anytime, day or night, you call me if you need anything, and I mean anything, homework, help, someone to talk to, or if you just want to hear a woman tell you you're doing great. I'm here." Garrett was the last to leave. He knelt beside Harlow one more time, this massive, scarred man with surprisingly gentle eyes. "Listen to me, kid, what happened tonight wasn't your fault. Not the cake, not being locked out, none of it. Adults are supposed to protect children, not hurt them. Your stepmother failed you, but you didn't fail anyone, you understand?" Harlow nodded, tears streaming down her face again. "And one more thing." Garrett pulled a small card from his pocket, a Hell's Angels membership card with Harlow's name printed on it, marked honorary member. "You're one of us now. That means you've got 200 people who will show up for you, always." She threw her arms around his neck, and Garrett, who'd built a reputation on being tough, unbreakable, held this 9-year-old girl and let himself cry for the daughter he'd lost and the one he'd found. After the last bike rumbled away, Thomas carried Harlow upstairs, not to the storage closet Diane had given her, but to the guest room, the nice one with the big window and soft carpet. "We'll fix this up proper," he said. "Paint it whatever color you want, get you a new bed, a real desk, make it yours." "Dad," Harlow said as he tucked her in, "are you going to be okay with Diane gone?" Thomas was quiet for a moment. "You know what? I think I'm going to be better than okay, because I should have left her years ago. I should have protected you from the way she treated you. I let my fear of being alone, of failing as a single parent, keep me in a marriage that was hurting my daughter. That ends now. You're not a failure, Harlow whispered. Neither are you, Butterfly, neither are you. He kissed her forehead. Happy birthday, sweetheart. I'm sorry it started so badly, but I'm glad for how it ended. After he left, Harlow lay in the darkness holding the compass Phoenix had given her. Through the window, she could see stars emerging as the snow clouds cleared. Somewhere out there, 200 bikers were heading home, but they'd left something behind, proof that family wasn't just biology. It was choice, it was showing up, it was seeing someone suffering and deciding they mattered. Her birthday cake had melted in the snow. Her stepmother was gone. Her father was probably going to struggle with bills and schedules and all the logistics of single parenthood. But Harlow Finch, 9 years old, finally felt safe, and that was worth everything. Some angels wear halos, some wear leather and ride through blizzards to save children nobody else saw. Harlow learned that night that family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shows up when you're freezing in the dark. If this story touched you, subscribe and join our family. Everyone deserves people who stay. The birthday cake sat untouched on the porch, 9 candles melting into pink frosting as snowflakes buried it. Harlow didn't cry when her stepmother locked the door. She'd learned that crying only made Diane angrier. She just stood there, barefoot in December, watching her own celebration disappear under white. Before we start the story, tell us wherever you're watching from, tell us in the comments what touched you most in this story. Harlow Finch turned 9 years old on the coldest night Oregon had seen in 15 years. She knew this because the radio had been warning about it all week. Wind chills dropping to -20, black ice forming on Highway 26, shelters opening early for anyone without heat. Her father had promised things would be different this year. Diane's trying, he'd said that morning, kissing Harlow's forehead before leaving for his double shift at the lumber mill. Give her a chance, Butterfly, she made you a cake. The cake had been real, chocolate with strawberry frosting, Harlow's favorite, 9 pink candles waiting to be lit. For 3 hours, Harlow had sat at the kitchen table, watching Diane move through the house like she was alone. Cleaning counters that were already clean, folding laundry with sharp, angry movements. Never once looking at Harlow. At 6 o'clock, Diane's phone rang, her real daughter Madison calling from college in Seattle. Harlow heard the shift in Diane's voice, warm, maternal, everything she never used with Harlow. Of course I remember your friend's concert, honey, I'll wire the money tonight. When Diane hung up, she finally acknowledged Harlow's existence. Your father called, mill equipment broke, he won't be home until midnight. Harlow's stomach dropped, but the cake is in the kitchen. Diane's voice was flat. Help yourself, I'm going to bed. Can you light the candles? The words came out smaller than Harlow intended. Please, just so I can make a wish. Diane stared at her. In that moment, Harlow saw something flicker across her stepmother's face, not anger exactly, something closer to resentment. The deep kind that had been building for years since Harlow's mother died and her father remarried too quickly, bringing his grieving child into a woman's life who'd never wanted to be a mother to someone else's daughter. I'm tired, Harlow. You're 9 now, old enough to light your own candles. She turned toward the stairs, and don't make a mess, I just cleaned. Harlow had tried. She'd found matches in the junk drawer, the long ones her father used for the fireplace. But her hands shook as she struck the first one and it fell onto the cake, landing in the frosting. Panic seized her. Diane would see it, would know, would add it to the long list of ways Harlow ruined everything. She'd picked up the cake, her birthday cake, and carried it to the porch, thinking the cold would preserve it until her father came home. They could celebrate then, just the two of them, the way they used to before Diane, but Diane had been watching. Had seen Harlow go outside, had seen the door left slightly ajar. The lock clicking shut was the quietest, cruelest sound Harlow had ever heard. She turned around, cake still in her hands, and stared at the closed door. Knock softly, Diane, I'm still outside. Silence, Diane, please, I just wanted to wait for Dad. The porch light went off. Through the window, Harlow saw her stepmother walk past, phone pressed to her ear, already moving on. Harlow set the cake on the porch rail and knocked harder. Diane, it's cold. Nothing. The house lights went off one by one. bedroom, bathroom, hallway, until Harlow stood in darkness, her breath coming in visible clouds, her feet going numb against the wooden planks. She tried the door handle. Locked, tried the garage door, locked, ran around to the back, slipping on ice, skinning her knee, back door, locked, every window latched, every entry sealed, Diane had made sure. The first real sob broke free when Harlow realized her father wouldn't be home for 6 more hours. 6 hours in negative temperatures, wearing the thin dress Diane had picked out that morning, something nice for your special day, now revealed as calculated cruelty. Harlow pressed her face against the living room window. Inside, she could see the thermostat on the wall. 72 degrees, warm, safe, 20 feet away and completely unreachable. Her fingers started losing feeling around 7:30. Her lips turned blue around 8. At 8:45, Harlow heard them, low and rumbling, growing louder. The sound of engines, dozens of them, moving through town like rolling thunder. She looked up from where she'd curled into a ball by the door, trying to preserve body heat. Down the street, headlights appeared, then more, then more. A convoy of motorcycles, chrome gleaming under the streetlights, their riders massive figures in leather and denim. Harlow's first instinct was fear. Every adult in Sweet Home, Oregon talked about the Hells Angels the way they talked about storms, inevitable, dangerous, something to avoid. The chapter that ran out of the old foundry on the edge of town had a reputation. Keep your head down when they ride through, don't make eye contact, don't ask questions, but they were slowing down. The lead bike, a massive black Harley with flame decals, pulled up to Harlow's driveway. The rider killed the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by the idling of the bikes behind him. The man who dismounted stood at least 6'4". His leather vest was covered in patches Harlow didn't understand. His beard was iron gray, his eyes hidden behind dark glasses despite the night. Everything about him screamed danger. He looked at Harlow, at her bare feet, her thin dress. The birthday cake slowly being buried in snow, and something in his expression shifted from intimidating to absolutely furious. The man removed his sunglasses slowly, deliberately. His eyes were pale blue, the kind that had seen violence and chosen every day not to become it. He walked up the driveway with heavy, purposeful steps, boots crunching through snow, and stopped 3 feet from where Harlow huddled. "How long you been out here?" His voice was gravel and smoke, but somehow not unkind. Harlow's teeth chattered too hard to answer immediately. Since 6. Almost 3 hours. He turned, looked at the house with its dark windows, its locked doors. Someone inside. She nodded. "Your mama." "Stepmom." The word hung in the air. Behind him, more bikes had shut off. Harlow counted, not 25, not 50. 200 motorcycles lined the street, their riders dismounting, watching. A wall of leather and metal that had materialized out of nowhere on her 9th birthday. The man crouched down to her level. Up close, she saw scars, one through his left eyebrow, another along his jaw, saw the patches on his vest more clearly. HELLSANGELS, Oregon chapter, and a name patch, Garrison. "I'm Garrett," he said. "What's your name, kid?" "Harlow." "Harlow, that's pretty." Garrett's eyes flicked to the birthday cake, now almost completely covered in snow. "Today's special." "My birthday," her voice broke. "I'm 9. Something crossed Garrett's face, pain maybe, or memory. He stood and turned to the riders behind him. "Dutch, Phoenix, get the med kit and blankets. Harlow's been out here 3 hours in sub-zero temps. We need to warm her up slow or she'll go into shock." 2 men moved immediately. One was younger, maybe 30, with a shaved head and kind eyes. The other was older, Native American, with long gray hair and a calm presence that reminded Harlow of her grandfather. Garrett turned back to the house, walked up to the door. Knocked 3 solid hits that echoed through the neighborhood. "Open up." Silence. He knocked again, harder. "I know you're in there, open this door." A light came on upstairs, then the porch light. The door cracked open and Diane appeared, wrapped in a bathrobe, her face a mask of irritation that froze when she saw Garrett. Behind him, 200 bikers stood in formation, silent and absolutely terrifying. "What do you want?" Her voice was thin, scared. "Your daughter's been outside for 3 hours in 9-degree weather with no shoes." Diane's eyes darted to Harlow, then back to Garrett. Harlow watched her stepmother's mind work, calculating. "She went out on her own. I told her not to." "That a fact?" Garrett's voice dropped lower. "So you didn't lock the door?" "The door locks automatically." Funny, I can see the deadbolt from here, those don't turn themselves. Diane's face flushed. Look, I don't know who you think you are, but this is my home, my family. You need to leave before I call the police. Call them. Garrett crossed his arms. Please. I'd love to explain to Sheriff Raines why a 9-year-old was locked outside on her birthday while her stepmother ignored her. I'm sure the Sweet Home Gazette would love that story too. Behind him, a woman stepped forward. She was maybe 40 with auburn hair in a braid and a leather jacket that matched the men's. Her patch read, Vice President, her name tag SLOANE. Ma'am, Sloane said, her voice calmer than Garrett's but somehow more frightening, your stepdaughter has early-stage hypothermia. Her lips are blue, she can't feel her feet. If we'd come by 15 minutes later, we'd be calling an ambulance. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let us in, we're going to warm her up properly. And you're going to explain to her father why his daughter almost died on your watch. Her father is at work, Diane said, but her voice wavered. He doesn't get home until midnight. Then you've got 6 hours to figure out what you're going to tell him. Sloane's expression didn't change. Door now. Diane stepped back. The bikers moved like a coordinated unit. Garrett scooped Harlow up. She weighed nothing, all bones and cold skin, and carried her inside. The warmth of the house hit her like a physical blow. Her body started shaking violently, uncontrollably. That's good, the man called Phoenix said, wrapping her in blankets. Shivering means you're warming up. We're going to take this slow. Dutch, get some lukewarm water, not hot lukewarm. Diane stood frozen in her own living room, watching as these strangers took over her space. Sloane positioned herself between Diane and Harlow, not threateningly, just present. A wall. Where's her room? Garrett asked. Upstairs. Second door. Show me. Diane led him up. Harlow heard their footsteps, heard a door open, heard Garrett's voice, quiet but sharp. This is her room, this is what you gave her. Pause, then Diane, it's temporary, we're remodeling. You're remodeling? Garrett's laugh was bitter. This is a storage closet. When Garrett came back down, he was carrying Harlow's things, what little she had. A backpack, 3 books, a stuffed rabbit that had been her mother's. He set them gently on the couch beside her. Dutch is bringing dry clothes from his daughter, she's about your size. He sat on the coffee table facing Harlow. You okay, kid? She nodded, but tears were streaming down her face now that the shock was wearing off. I just wanted to have a birthday, just one good one. I know. Garrett's voice cracked slightly. I know, Harlow. Sloane appeared with hot chocolate made properly with real cocoa and milk warmed on the stove. She sat beside Harlow, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Sip slow, small sips. Around them, the other bikers had filed in. They filled the living room, the kitchen, the hallway, not threatening, just there, present, witnessing, making it clear that Harlow wasn't alone anymore. Diane stood against the far wall, her phone clutched in her hand. I'm calling my husband. Good, Garrett said. You should. He should know what happened here tonight. But here's what you're going to tell him, that his daughter almost died because you locked her out in a blizzard. And if you lie, if you try to twist this, we've got 200 witnesses who saw exactly what we found. Thomas Finch arrived at 9:40, a full 2 hours before his shift was supposed to end. He burst through the front door, still in his work clothes, sawdust clinging to his jacket, panic written across his face. He stopped dead when he saw the living room filled with bikers. What the hell? Then his eyes found Harlow wrapped in blankets on the couch, her feet elevated, her face still too pale. Butterfly, baby, what happened? Harlow tried to speak, but the words caught. Garrett stood instead. Mr. Finch. I'm Garrett. We found your daughter locked outside in 9-degree weather. She'd been out there for 3 hours. Thomas's face went white. He turned slowly to Diane, who'd positioned herself in the kitchen doorway. You said she was fine. You said Harlow was watching TV, and everything was okay. Diane started. Don't. Thomas's voice shook. Don't lie to me, not now, not about this. She went outside on her own, Diane said, but the words sounded hollow even to her. I didn't know she couldn't get back in. The door was dead-bolted, Sloane said quietly. From the inside, that doesn't happen by accident. Thomas crossed the room and knelt beside Harlow. His hands trembled as he touched her face, her hair. I'm so sorry, God, Butterfly, I'm so sorry. Why were you outside? Thomas asked, his voice breaking. Harlow pointed to the porch where the birthday cake still sat, now just a snow-covered lump. I dropped a match in the frosting. I thought if I brought it outside, Diane wouldn't see. I was going to wait for you so we could celebrate together. Thomas's jaw clenched. He stood and faced Diane with an expression Harlow had never seen on her father, cold rage barely contained. She was trying to save her birthday cake, and you locked her out. I thought she'd knock louder, I thought she'd. She did knock, Thomas's voice rose. Our daughter was screaming for help and you turned off the lights. She's not my daughter, Diane said, and the room went silent. The words hung there, ugly and final. Harlow felt them land in her chest like stones. She'd always known, somewhere deep down, but hearing it said out loud, hearing Diane finally admit what her actions had been screaming for years, made it real in a way that hurt worse than the cold. Thomas stared at his wife like he'd never seen her before. Get out. What? Get out of this house, now. Diane's face flushed red. You can't kick me out, this is my house too, we're married. And we're done. Thomas's voice was quiet now, which somehow made it more frightening. I've been making